Welcome. Tonight, we go back. We go back 600 years. To a different world. A colder world. A quieter world. The rain is falling outside. You are safe inside. Warm and dry. Far away from the story we will tell. This is a story about sickness. About a time when death walked through every village, every town, every home. But do not be afraid. That time is long gone. Those people are dust. Their pain is over. We will speak of them softly, gently. We will remember them, but we will not feel their fear. Tonight, we talk about the Black Death. The plague that changed everything. The plague that came from the east. That moved like a shadow. That touched every corner of the known world. We will take our time. There is no rush. The rain will keep falling. Your breath will stay slow. Let us begin at the beginning. Before the sickness came. Before the dying started. Let us talk about the world as it was. A world of fields and faith. A world of kings and peasants. A world that did not know what was coming. The year is 1345. That is a number. A date. But to the people living then, it was just now. The calendar said October. Or November. It was hard to know exactly. People did not have clocks on their walls. They did not have phones or radios or newspapers. They had the sun. They had the moon. They had the church bells. Life was slow. Imagine a village in England. Or France. Or Italy. The village is small. Maybe 50 houses. Maybe 100. The houses are made of wood and mud. The roofs are thatched with straw. The floors are dirt. Inside each house, a single room. A fire in the middle. The smoke goes up and out through a hole in the roof. There are no chimneys. There are no glass windows. Just wooden shutters. Closed at night. Opened in the morning. The people sleep on straw beds. Sometimes on the floor. Sometimes on a wooden frame. They sleep close together. For warmth. For comfort. In winter, the cold is hard. The wind comes through the walls. The rain finds the holes in the roof. But they are used to it. This is all they know. The people wake at dawn. They sleep at dusk. There is no electricity. No light after dark except the fire. Or a candle made from animal fat. The candle smokes. It smells. It does not give much light. So the night is dark. Truly dark. Dark like we never see today. On a night without a moon, you cannot see your hand before your face. The people go to bed early. They sleep long hours. They wake, and they sleep again. A broken sleep. A natural sleep. They dream of food. Of harvest. Of loved ones lost. They do not dream of the plague. Not yet. The work is hard. Most people are farmers. Peasants. They work the land for a lord. The Lord owns the fields. The Lord owns the castle on the hill. The peasants do not own much. A cooking pot. A blanket. A few animals. A chicken. A pig. Maybe a cow if they are lucky. The cow lives inside the house in winter. The animal's body gives heat. The smell is strong. But again, they are used to it. They grow wheat and barley and rye. They make bread. Dark bread. Heavy bread. They eat porridge. They eat vegetables from the garden. Onions. Cabbage. Peas. Meat is rare. A feast day. A wedding. A slaughtered pig in autumn. They drink water from the stream. But water can be bad. So they drink ale. Small beer. Even children drink ale. It is safer than the water. The church is the center of everything. The village has a stone church. Small. Cold. But strong. The priest says Mass in Latin. The people do not understand the words. But they understand the meaning. God is watching. God is judging. God is merciful. Life is short. Everyone knows this. Women die in childbirth. Children die from fever. Men die in accidents on the farm. A cut on the hand can kill you. A bad tooth can kill you. A simple cold can become pneumonia. Death is everywhere. But it is familiar. They do not fear death the way we do. Death is a neighbor. Death is a visitor. The priest tells them, death is a door, not an end. So when a baby dies, they weep. But they also pray. The baby is in heaven, safe with God. When a mother dies, the village helps. The other women take the children. Life continues. The seasons turn. The wheat grows. The bread bakes. The year turns to 1346. The harvest is good. The winter is cold but not too cold. In the spring, the flowers come. The birds sing. The world is green and alive. The peasants plant their fields. The lords ride out to hunt. The merchants travel between towns. Trade is growing. Ships carry wool to Flanders. Wine to England. Spices from the east. The world is connected. More than ever before. A ship from Genoa might go to Constantinople. A ship from Venice might go to Alexandria. Goods move. People move. Ideas move. And something else moves. Something small. Something invisible. Something no one can see. Sound, rain. Pause. A longer pause. 10 seconds of silence except for the rain, far away. Very far away. In the east. In the grasslands of Asia. Near a large lake called Issyk-Kul. A place of nomads and traders. A place on the Silk Road. In the year 1338, something happened there. We know this because of a cemetery. A graveyard. On the tombstones, there are words. Carved in stone. One tombstone says, died in the year 1338. Another says, died of pestilence. Pestilence. A sickness. That is the first clue. The first whisper. The sickness did not start there. It had been in Asia for a long time. in the mountains, in the burrows of small animals, rats, marmots, gerbils. The animals carried a bacteria, a tiny living thing called Yersinia pestis. The bacteria lived in their blood. It did not hurt the animals much. But when a flea bit the animal, the flea drank the blood. The bacteria grew inside the flea. The flea's stomach filled with bacteria. The flea became hungry, angry. The flea jumped to another animal, to a rat, to a human. And when the flea bit the human, it could not swallow. The bacteria blocked its throat. So the flea vomited the bacteria into the human's skin. A tiny bite, a small itch. But inside the body, a war had begun. No one saw this. No one could see it. There were no microscopes, no germ theory, no antibiotics. There were only symptoms. First, a fever, a headache, a feeling of cold, even in summer. Then, the lumps, the lymph nodes, in the groin, in the armpit, in the neck. They swelled. They grew large, the size of an egg, the size of an apple, the size of a fist. They were hard. They were hot. They were painful. The people called them buboes, from the Greek word for groin. That is where we get the name bubonic plague. The lumps would turn black, purple, red. The skin would darken. The fingers and toes would turn black. That is where we get the name Black Death. Not from the color of death itself, but from the color of the dying body. The flesh turning dark, like charcoal, like night. From the bite to the death, it took about 5 days. Sometimes less, sometimes a little more. The fever would rise. The patient would grow confused. They would speak nonsense. They would see things that were not there. Then they would fall into a deep sleep. A sleep that became deeper and deeper. And then they would stop breathing. It was not a violent death. Not usually. It was a fading, a dimming, a candle burning down. The face would look peaceful at the end. The pain was gone. But for the ones left behind, the horror was just beginning. They had touched the sick person. They had held their hand. They had kissed their cheek. They had breathed the same air. And now, the sickness was inside them too. We do not know exactly when the plague reached Europe. But we know a story. A story from a port city. A city called Kaffa. Kaffa was on the Black Sea. A trading post. A busy place with ships from Italy. In 1346, the city was under attack. An army from the east had surrounded the walls. The siege lasted a long time. The soldiers outside grew sick. The plague came to their camp. Men died by the hundreds. The commander ordered the dead bodies to be thrown over the city walls. A terrible act. An early form of biological warfare. The people inside the city got sick. The plague entered Kaffa. Ships left the city. They sailed west, toward Italy, toward home. The sailors on those ships were already sick, or they would be soon. The ship sailed for days, weeks. The men died at sea. The bodies lay on the deck. The rats ran through the holds. The fleas jumped from rat to rat, from rat to sailor. When the ships reached Sicily, the harbor masters saw something wrong. The oarsmen were dead. The captain was dead. The sails were empty. The ships drifted into the port. Ghost ships. The people of Messina went aboard. They took the goods. They touched the bodies. And then they went home. That was the door. That was the moment. The Black Death had entered Europe. The year was 1347. October. Late autumn. The rains were falling then too. Just like tonight. But you are safe. You are warm. You are lying down, breathing slowly. The rain is your blanket. The darkness is your friend. We will continue. Slowly. Gently. There is no need to hurry. The year 1348. The plague moves west. From Sicily, it spreads to the mainland. To Italy. The city of Messina empties. The dead lie in the streets. The living flee to the countryside. But the countryside is not safe. The sickness follows them. It rides with them on horses. It walks with them on foot. It hides in their clothes, in their bags, in the fur of their dogs and cats. There is no escape, no hiding place. The people do not understand. They think the air is bad. They think the water is poisoned. They think God is punishing them. They think the devil has been let loose. They are wrong, of course. But they do not know that. Let us talk about how the plague moved. It moved at the speed of a horse, or the speed of a ship. In the winter, it slowed down. The fleas do not like the cold. They hide in warm places, in fur, in wool, in bedding. But when spring came, the plague woke up again. It traveled along the roads, the Roman roads, still good after 1,000 years. A merchant would ride from Florence to Rome. He would stop at inns. He would share meals. He would sleep in shared beds. He would feel fine in the morning. But the fleas would jump from his clothes to the innkeeper's blanket. And 3 days later, the innkeeper would feel the fever. And 3 days after that, the innkeeper would be dead. The merchant would ride on. He would not know. He would not feel the flea bites on his ankle. He would arrive in Rome. He would sell his wool. He would buy spices. And then the fever would find him too. Florence. A beautiful city. A rich city. In 1348, Florence had 100,000 people. By the end of the year, half of them were dead. We have a witness. A man named Giovanni Boccaccio. He was a writer. He lived through the plague in Florence. He wrote about it later. His words are calm, careful, but you can feel the sadness underneath. He said, "The victims ate lunch with their friends and dinner with their ancestors in paradise." He meant that death was fast. Too fast to say goodbye. He described the streets. Empty. Quiet. the grass growing on the roads. He described the houses. Doors open. No one inside. A pot on the fire. A bed unmade. A child's toy on the floor. He described the smell. Not the smell of death, but the smell of herbs. People burned rosemary and juniper. They thought the smoke would clean the air. It did not. But it made the city smell like a forest. The doctors tried to help. They wore long robes. They wore masks with glass eyes. The masks had long beaks filled with herbs. They looked like strange birds. Dark birds. Walking through the streets. They did not know that the plague came from fleas. They thought it came from bad air. Miasma. A poisonous mist. So they burned fires in the streets. They carried flowers to their noses. They told people to wash with vinegar. Some of these things helped a little. Vinegar kills fleas. Smoke drives them away. But the doctors did not know why. They were guessing in the dark. Most of them died anyway. A doctor would touch a patient. He would feel the buboes. He would open them with a knife to let out the pus. The pus was full of bacteria. The knife was not cleaned. The doctor's hands were not washed. He would go to the next patient. And the next. And then he would feel the fever himself. The priests also died. They visited the sick. They heard confessions. They gave last rites. They leaned close to the dying to hear their words. They breathed the same air. They touched the same hands. They died in their churches, at their altars, in the streets on the way to the next house. Some villages lost every priest, every single one. There was no one to ring the bells, no one to say the Mass, no one to bury the dead. And so the dead lay where they fell, in the fields, in the doorways, in the beds where they had slept their whole lives. In Paris, the plague arrived in June 1348. Paris was the largest city in Europe. 200,000 people. The king, Philip VI, asked the doctors of the university for help. The doctors wrote a report. It was very long, very learned, very wrong. They said the plague came from a conjunction of planets: Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. They said the alignment had caused a great corruption of the air. They recommended fires, herbs, good wine, and fleeing. Fleeing was the best advice. The rich people fled. They went to the countryside, to their castles, to their estates. But the poor could not flee. They stayed in the city. They stayed in their small rooms. They stayed with the rats and the fleas. The poor died in greater numbers. They always do. The plague did not care about your status. Not really. A king could die. A queen could die. An archbishop could die. In England, the king's daughter, Princess Joan, died of the plague. She was only 14. She was on her way to marry a Spanish prince. She never got there. She died in a small village, alone, far from home. Her father, King Edward III, received the news. He wept. Then he went back to war. Life continued, even for kings. But something was changing. Something deep. The old certainties were cracking. The old answers did not work anymore. Why had God sent this plague? No one knew. Why did some people live and others die? No one knew. Why did the wicked survive and the good die? No one knew. Sound. A single drop of water. Then silence. Then the rain returns. Some people turned to faith. They prayed harder. They gave more money to the church. They walked on pilgrimages to holy shrines. Some people turned to fear. They blamed their neighbors. They blamed the Jews. They blamed the lepers. They blamed the beggars. In some towns, people attacked the Jewish communities. They said the Jews had poisoned the wells. This was a lie. A terrible lie. But fear makes people cruel. Fear makes people blind. The Pope, Clement VI, said the Jews were innocent. He wrote a letter. He said, "Stop the violence." Some people listened. Some did not. The plague was a mirror. It showed people who they really were. The kind became kinder. The cruel became crueler. But most people just tried to survive. Day by day. Hour by hour. They woke up. They checked their armpits. They checked their groins. They looked for the lumps. No lumps. Good. Another day. They went to sleep. They dreamed of the dead. They woke again. No lumps. Good. Another day. By the summer of 1348, the plague had reached England. It arrived in a port called Melcombe Regis, in Dorset, on the south coast. A ship from Gascony brought the sickness. The sailors were sick. The rats were sick. The people of Melcombe started dying. Then the next town. Then the next. The plague moved north. To Bristol. To Gloucester. To Oxford. The students at Oxford died in their dormitories. The university closed. It stayed closed for 18 months. The plague moved to London, the largest city in England. 60,000 people. The streets of London were narrow. The houses were close together. The rats were everywhere. The Thames River carried waste. The water was brown. The smell was bad. The plague loved London. It spread like fire in dry grass. The graveyards filled. Then they overflowed. The churchyards could not hold all the bodies. So they dug new graves. Large pits. Deep holes in the ground outside the city walls. They threw the bodies in. Hundreds at a time. A layer of bodies. A layer of lime. A layer of dirt. Then more bodies. No prayers. No coffins. No markers. Just the sound of dirt hitting flesh. Thump. 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 And then silence. We will pause here. Just for a moment. Let the rain wash over you. Let the sound fill your ears. You are not in that time. You are here. Now. Safe. The bodies are gone. The pits are filled. Grass grows over them now. 600 years of grass. 600 years of rain. Let that thought carry you. Let it be soft. Let it be light. We will continue soon. When you are ready. The year 1349. The plague is everywhere. From Norway to North Africa. From Ireland to Greece. No place is untouched. No village is spared. The mountains do not stop it. The rivers do not stop it. The walls of castles do not stop it. It goes over the Alps. Through the passes. Into Switzerland. Into Germany. It goes across the sea. To the Baltic. To Sweden. To the far north. In Sweden, a ship ran aground near Bergen. The crew was dead. The cargo was wool and grain. The local people went to the ship. They took the wool. They took the grain. And the plague came with the wool. With the grain. Soon, all of Norway was sick. Let us talk about numbers. Gentle numbers. Quiet numbers. No one knows exactly how many people died. The records are incomplete. The dead could not count themselves. But historians have made estimates. Careful estimates. Europe had about 80 million people in 1300. By 1353, after the plague had passed, Europe had about 30 million. 50 million people died. 50 million. That is more than the population of many countries today. But numbers are cold. They do not tell the story. Let us tell the story in a different way. Imagine a village. A small village. 100 people. In the spring, the plague arrives. A traveler passes through. He stops for the night. He drinks at the well. He sleeps in the barn. He leaves in the morning. He feels fine. But he leaves behind a gift. A flea in the straw. A rat in the hay. Within a week, the first person is sick. A farmer. His wife cares for him. She holds his hand. He dies on the 5th day. She weeps. On the 7th day, she feels the fever. She goes to bed. Her daughter brings her water. The mother dies. The daughter weeps. On the 10th day, the daughter feels the fever. Her brother cares for her. The daughter dies. The brother weeps. By the end of the month, 30 people are dead. By the end of the next month, 60 people are dead. By the end of the summer, 90 people are dead. 10 people remain. They are the ones who did not get sick. Maybe they had resistance. Maybe they were lucky. They bury the last bodies. They say the last prayers. And then they walk away. The village is empty. The fields go wild. The houses fall down. The forest takes back the land. Within a generation, no one remembers the village name. This happened thousands of times. Across Europe. Entire families gone. Entire bloodlines ended. The names of those people are lost. Their faces are forgotten. But they were real. They laughed. They loved. They argued. They sang. They had hopes for their children. They had dreams for the future. And then they were gone. We do not tell this story to frighten you. We tell it to honor them, to remember that they lived, that they mattered, that the rain fell on their roofs too, that the sun rose on their fields, and that we, tonight, are their descendants, their distant children. We carry their blood. We breathe their air. They are not forgotten. The plague changed the world, not just by killing people, but by changing how people thought. Before the plague, the world was stable. The church was strong. The lords were powerful. The peasants were poor and obedient. After the plague, everything shifted. There were fewer workers. Much fewer. A lord who had 100 peasants before the plague now had 20. The 20 peasants knew they were valuable. They knew the Lord needed them. So they asked for more money. They asked for better food. They asked for freedom. And for the first time, the Lord said yes. Wages went up. The cost of food went down. The survivors were richer. A peasant could afford meat, could afford better clothes, could afford a better house. The old rules did not matter anymore. The old certainties were gone. The church also changed. People had prayed. They had gone to Mass. They had given money to the priests. And still, the plague had come. Still, their children had died. Some people lost their faith. They stopped going to church. They decided that God was not listening, or that God was not there. Other people became more religious. They joined groups called flagellants. The flagellants walked from town to town. They wore white robes. They carried whips with metal tips. They would stop in the town square. They would take off their robes. And they would whip themselves. On their backs. On their shoulders. On their legs. They did this to punish themselves. To show God they were sorry. To beg for mercy. The blood would run down their backs. They would sing hymns. They would cry out in pain. The crowds would watch. Some would weep. Some would join. The church did not like the flagellants. The Pope said they were going too far. But the people loved them. The people wanted to feel something. Anything. They wanted to believe that their suffering meant something. The plague also changed art. Before the plague, art was beautiful. Paintings of the Virgin Mary, smiling angels, golden halos. After the plague, art became darker. Artists painted skeletons, dancing skeletons, skeletons carrying scythes, skeletons leading kings and queens to the grave. They called it the danse macabre, the dance of death. Everyone dances with death. The rich, the poor, the young, the old. Death does not care about your crown, your money, your beauty. Death takes you by the hand, and you dance. These paintings are still there, on church walls, in old books. You can see them today. The skeletons grinning, the people crying. It is a strange art, a sad art, but also an honest art. The plague taught people to be honest about death. You cannot hide from it. You cannot bargain with it. You cannot pay it to go away. You can only live while you can, and then let go. In the year 1350, the plague began to slow down. Not because people stopped it, but because it ran out of people. The fleas need warm bodies. Rats, humans, squirrels. When the bodies are gone, the fleas die too. The bacteria has nowhere to go. The plague retreated. It hid in the mountains, in the burrows of wild animals. It would come back, many times, every generation or so. But the great killing was over. The Black Death had passed. The survivors came out of their houses. They opened their shutters. They let the sun in. They looked at each other. They had lost so much, but they were alive. And life, even broken life, continues. The fields were planted again. The churches were rebuilt. The babies were born. A new world rose from the ashes of the old. A world with fewer people, but with more freedom, more possibility. The Middle Ages were ending. A new age was beginning. But that is a story for another night. The year 1353. The plague is gone. For now. The people of Europe look around. Everything is different. Everything is the same. The sky is still blue. The rain still falls. The wheat still grows. But half of the faces are missing. A woman walks through her village. She sees an empty house. Her sister lived there. Her sister is dead. She sees another empty house. Her neighbor. A man who helped her fix her roof. He is dead. She sees a third empty house. The baker. His bread was good. His wife was kind. Their children played with her children. All dead. She keeps walking. She goes to the church. The priest is new. The old priest died last winter. The new priest is young. His voice shakes when he speaks. He says, "We are the ones who remain. We must live for those who cannot." The woman nods. She goes home. She lights her fire. She makes her bread. She lives. The memory of the plague did not disappear. It could not. The survivors had seen too much. They had held too many dying hands. They had buried too many children. They told stories. Around the fire. At the well. In the fields. "Remember the winter of the Great Death," they would say. "Remember how the bells did not ring because the bell ringer was dead. Remember how the wolves came down from the hills because there were no shepherds. Remember how the roses grew wild because no one was left to prune them." These stories became legends. The legends became history. And the history became part of who they were. The word quarantine comes from this time. In the city of Ragusa, on the Adriatic Sea, the leaders made a rule. Ships arriving from plague cities had to wait. They had to anchor outside the harbor. For 30 days. They called it Trentino, from the Italian word for 30. Later, they made it 40 days. Quarantina, from the Italian word for 40. Quarantine. It worked. Not because they understood the germ theory, But because 40 days was long enough for the sick to die, long enough for the fleas to starve, the people of Ragusa did not know why it worked. But they saw that it did. So the idea spread. Other cities made quarantine rules. Other ports held ships at anchor. A small victory. A tiny light in the darkness. The plague also changed medicine. Before the plague, doctors followed the old books. Galen, Hippocrates, ancient Greeks and Romans. After the plague, doctors started to look with their own eyes. They started to ask questions. They started to write down what they saw. A man named Guy de Chauliac was the Pope's doctor. He lived through the plague in Avignon. He wrote a book about it. A careful book. He described the symptoms. The buboes. The fever. The black spots. He did not know the cause. But he described it honestly. That was new. That was important. Honest observation. Writing down the truth. Even when the truth is terrible. That is the beginning of science. We are near the end of our story. The Black Death was a wound. A deep wound on the body of Europe. The wound healed. But it left a scar. And scars are not ugly. Scars are proof of survival. The people who lived through the plague did not forget. They carried the memory in their bones, in their blood, in their stories. And we, tonight, carry that memory too. Not as fear, not as pain, but as a quiet understanding. Life is fragile. Life is short. Life is precious. The rain falls on the living and the dead. The sun rises on the happy and the sad. We are here. For now. And that is enough. You have traveled back in time tonight. You have walked through the 14th century. You have seen the villages, the fields, the dark churches. You have heard the names of the dead. You have remembered them. But now, it is time to come back. The plague is gone. The rats are gone. The fleas are gone. The grass grows over the mass graves. The roses bloom where the houses fell. The world is quiet. The world is safe. You are in your room. In your bed. Under your blankets. The rain is still falling outside. Soft. Gentle. Kind. Let the sound of the rain fill your mind. Let it wash away the images. Let it carry you down. Down into sleep. There is nothing to fear. There is nothing to do. There is nothing to think. Just the rain. Just your breath. Just the darkness. Close your eyes. Let your body sink into the mattress. Let your arms feel heavy. Your legs feel heavy. Your head feel heavy. Let go of the day. Let go of the thoughts. Let go of the story. The story is over. The history is done. Now there is only sleep. Breathe in. Breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. The rain is your lullaby. The night is your blanket. Sleep. Sleep. Sleep.